Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Todd Martin. I'm the Grassroots Outreach Coordinator at the Natural Resources Council of Maine. I hope that you and your families are safe and healthy during this COVID-19 pandemic that we're all living through. We're so glad that you could join us this afternoon for this program. Before we get started, just a little bit about NRCM. So the Natural Resources Council of Maine is a nonprofit membership organization protecting, restoring, and conserving Maine's environment now and for future generations. For more than 60 years, the Natural Resources Council of Maine has helped protect the places and the way of life that make Maine so special. NRCM harnesses the power of the law, science, and the voices of more than 25,000 supporters statewide and beyond. Today's topic is how to get outdoors safely on Maine's trails during the COVID-19 crisis using Maine Trail Finder. You'll also learn about the Land for Maine's Future program, which has helped guarantee public access to hundreds of trails throughout Maine. Before we get started with our presentation, just a few logistical items about this Zoom webinar. First thing, today's webinar is being recorded, so you will be welcome to watch it again on YouTube in a couple of days. You might notice some slight delay between our presenters and the audio coming through. That might be as a result of slow internet connection, but we hope to have as little of that as possible. Your video and your audio is disabled by design. You'll only be able to see and hear the four of us that you see on your screen today. If you have a question for any of our presenters, please type it into the question and answer box that you can find at the bottom of your screen on the Zoom ribbon, the Q&A box, and we'll have plenty of time to get to your questions at the end of our presentation. Without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Melanie Sturm, who is NRCM's Forest and Wildlife Director.
Thanks, Todd, and thank you all so much for joining the webinar and your interest in this topic. As Todd mentioned, I'm Melanie Sturm, the Forest and Wildlife Program Director at NRCM, just a few months into the job. And after our two presenters, I'll tell you a little bit about Land for Maine's Future, or LMF for short. It's a state-run conservation program that's been immensely helpful in supporting conservation projects across the state. And you can find LMF projects by actually navigating through Maine Trail Finder. Many of you right now are probably seeking out trails and nature, and Maine Trail Finder is a way to do that. So I'll give more details on LMF later, but first I'll kick it to Nicole, and then we'll hear Alan speak, and I'll talk after that. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Melanie. I'd like to say great to see you all, but I guess you're saying great to see us instead. My name is Nicole Grohoski, and I work for the Center for Community GIS, and we are the company that manages Maine Trail Finder. So this afternoon, I'm going to talk a little bit about what is Maine Trail Finder. Then we're going to go through some of the features of the site, such as how to find trails and how to engage with the site. And then at the end, I'll show you some of the enhancements that we built into Maine Trail Finder in order to respond to the COVID-19 crisis and to help you as users get out safely and to help our business community during this challenging time. So, what is Maine Trail Finder? Maine Trail Finder is an online portal that helps you discover people-powered trails in Maine. We've been around for about 10 years, and we now have over 1,000 people-powered trails. And what I mean by that is those are hiking trails, biking trails, skiing, snowshoeing, paddling. So things that you're doing with your own energy. And they are distributed all across the state, and the site, as always, is free to use. One of the things that really differentiates our website from other trail websites is that we get the information that we share with you about the trails from the people who actually care for the trails. So those are our trail managers. And they come in all varieties. Some are private landowners, some are international organizations, some, like the Royal River Conservation Trust, have a specific focus area in Maine. You'll hear a little bit more about that later. but these are the folks that really do the work on the ground and help preserve the trails. So we work very closely with them to give you the best information that we possibly can. So a little bit about our history. This project started 10 years ago in Franklin County at our office in Farmington. So the question was, there are so many amazing trail experiences in Maine. How can we put that all in one place so people can see what the opportunities are? And sort of a funny part of this Genesis story was that some folks came out of a meeting at the hospital in Farmington to our office with a bunch of maps and brochures and guidebooks and said, how do we tell this story of what there is here so that we can attract healthcare providers to work in this region and also share with our customers, our clients, what are great ways to get outside. So it's sort of phenomenal for us now, 10 years later, to have come full circle as an opportunity or a resource for you during this public health crisis. So the way the site started actually was a lot of youth GPSing trails and with some money to start the website, and then we were able to expand with help from the Bureau of Parks and Lands. They really helped us move out of Franklin County statewide with all of the different properties that they have around the state. And since then, so many supporters have come forward and kept this site going and kept it modern and help us keep it free for you all. Encourage you to check out the MTF Maine Trail Finder supporters page if you get a moment on our website. So some fun stats. In 2019, we had about 400,000 unique users using the site, and we find that that's split pretty evenly between people in Maine and people planning to visit Maine. We had 1 million page views. And fascinating, since in this time period that we've had the COVID-19 crisis, compared to last year at the same time, our page views have gone up 200%. And that's in part because the outdoor community has really been promoting Maine Trail Finder as a great way to find those less frequented trails, places where you might not have as much crowding. And also because we see that a lot of folks are really looking for opportunities to get outside with their family safely right now. So we're happy to be here for you and to support that. And we're so proud that our website is able to host you all with no issues. So let's take this opportunity now. I'm going to share my screen and I'll tour you around the website a little bit. And it might take a minute for it to load for some of you folks, but what we're looking at now is our homepage. And here, I'm just going to do that really quick. Apologies. There we go. Start my video. All right, so we're looking at our homepage here, and we just want to dive right in and look for trails. So I'm going to click this button for Find Trails. And what's going to load up here is a map of Maine with all these points on it that represent all of the trails. So you can see that there are literally 1,000 trails. And one of the fun things about this map is you can just dive right in and start exploring either where you live or a place that you like to visit. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and you'll see here, I have this blue dot, and that's my location. So if you have location services enabled on your web browser, you will see this blue dot, and you can explore in your region. You can click on pins to get more information about a trail, for instance. And you can browse around, you can change your base map, you could choose to use an aerial photo like you would on Google Maps. If you'd like to see the diversity or the total amount of trails that we have, you can click this cool little button for show the trail lines, and you can see that one point could really represent a lot of trails. And finally, sometimes when I'm browsing trails, I get a little bit out of sorts and I don't know where I am anymore. And we've got a button for that too. We can help you get home. You can click right here on the left for the reset map view. And that will bring you back to Maine and recenter you where you might want to be. So that's just a fun way to browse around. But what we really love about this site is that we have a way that you can search for a particular experience that you're hoping for. So for example, it's a really nice day here. I live up in Ellsworth. I'm hoping that I can get out this afternoon after this webinar. Hope you guys will too. So I'm going to look for a hiking experience I'm not super concerned about the difficulty or the distance necessarily. And because we've been talking, and we will talk a little bit more about Land for Maine's Future, I'm going to select that as an option. And then I'm going to find some trails near me. That's so I can stay close to home and stay safe. Also not spend too much time in the car right now. I'm going to look at what's available within 20 miles. And finally, trails that are open to the best of our knowledge. So I'm going to hit the search button, see what I come up with. So hopefully you can see a few pins near the Ellsworth area. And these are the trail opportunities that I might be interested in that fit my search criteria. So for instance, there's the Indian Point Trail right here in town. Now I could click every one of these little pins to learn more, or I could go to the list view and take a look at all the opportunities in one place and compare them to each other with some quick facts. So let's take a moment to look at the Indian Point Trail. So I want to just walk you through some of the features that we have on this trail this trail page. So right at the beginning is the quick facts and some photos that you might want to browse through to see if this looks like a trail that you'd be interested in. If you think so, then we recommend that you scroll down a little bit and look at the details so you can read more about the trail. This one has often otters are seen there. And you also can find that information about the trail manager or that group that we're talking about that's helping keep the trail maintained and available for you to use. The trail manager really knows so much more about the trail than we do because we're just sharing information as opposed to them, and they're on the ground actually taking care of the trails. So if you have a trail specific question, we recommend that you get in touch with the trail manager directly, and we provide their contact information right down here. Some other fun things, the trail map. Who doesn't love a map? We love maps. Here's a map, and you could click on a pin or hover over it to get more information sometimes. There's also an opportunity to filter all the pins that you see. So some trail postings have a lot of features, and you might just be interested in finding out just where the parking is, for instance. So I can click that and see just that pin on this map. So it's a good way to filter out some of that noise if you need. Speaking of parking, let's check out the directions tab. So here we've got a short description about how to get to the trail. And then if you click on the parking pin, there's a link to get directions. So if you're on your computer, this will open up a Google map. And if you're on your phone, it will open up whatever your map app is and help you get directly from where you are to the trail. Also can check out to see if any other trail users have shared any comments. And they might have some feedback on the trail, positive. They might say, oh, that bridge actually washed out. This is a good way that we communicate from users to trail managers to let them know if there are concerns or if they're really getting a lot of positive feedback on their trails. So I will get back to the services in a moment, but what I want to do next is show you not just how to browse the site, but also how you can interact with the site a little bit more. So you can do that by creating a free user account. And so if I click this login button in the top right, there's an option for if you don't have an account, you can create an account. And it's pretty easy to do. You'll see it's just a simple form. And then you click create an account. But because I already have an account, I'm just going to log in. And now I can do all sorts of fun things, such as making lists of trails, keeping trail logs, and earning badges. So I'm just going to run through those really quickly. The first would be, okay, so today I've been searching for some trails near me that I'm interested in visiting. So I'm going to save them to my wish list so that if I can't go out today, I won't forget where it is that I wanted to go. Or maybe I'm even planning for an adventure later in the summer or in the fall, and I just want to make a note to myself. So you'll notice up here near the add trail log button, there's also a bookmark icon and a heart icon. So the bookmark icon adds the trail to your wish list. So I'm going to do that. Oops, excuse me. There you go. And then I can look in my user account and I can find my wish list. Let's go check it out. I've been compiling quite a list of trails as I'm at home, and I can scroll through these and read about them and remind myself, or I can click here to look at them on a map to make a plan for a trip. You also probably saw that I did have that heart option, which was to add a trail as my favorite. And this is a similar type of list here. And it shows some trails that I've visited, that I loved, and that I want to remember. Maybe I want to go back, or maybe I want to remember them so I can recommend them to friends. So I know that some folks like to keep a trail log, and that's often been done in a journal, but we had a lot of user requests to keep a trail log right in our website. So we added that option. You can see that here as a tab. You can also get to that from the other menu. And you can chronicle your adventures on a trail. Now, the trail log is private to only you. So if you have a positive experience that you want to share and remember, you can add that. But also, if the trail is really slippery and you fell, we hope that doesn't happen, certainly, but you could write that in here and no one else is going to know that. And you can save that and keep that as a trail log for you to read later. So one of the fun things about the trail logs is that actually, if you log your experiences on trails, you can earn badges. So what I would like to do is show you some of the badge opportunities. So what is a badge? A badge is basically a digital challenge that if you fill out certain criteria to earn a badge, you will receive one and you can share it on your social media. You could print it out, do anything you like with it. So one of the new badges that we added during this time is the Go the Social Distance badge. And here we're encouraging folks to get out and discover some local trails. And if you log that you visited 6 miles of trails through the trail logs, then you will receive this badge. Now, certainly we don't know if you were staying 6 feet apart from folks. We hope so, but the badge system is very much on your honor. And there are all sorts of fun ones that you can receive. So I'd encourage you to take a look if you find that interesting. So those are some of the things that you can do with an account. The other things you can do with an account are add comments, like the one we saw on the Ellsworth Trail posting. And you can also add photos. And we love to see user photos come in. And a lot of them actually we sometimes can use on our website because the state is so beautiful and folks are really good at capturing images of Maine. So feel free to contribute your comments or your photos for everyone to see. Those are public. So let's talk about a few of the other features that we've added recently as well, beyond the trails and the user accounts. We've also added an events calendar, and this again came from feedback from users as well as a lot of the trail groups that we work with. So right now, you won't be surprised to see that there aren't a lot of in-person outdoor events available. However, we've had some partners who are offering virtual events, and you can take a look at those here. You'll see that our event that we're doing right now is actually showing as well as a virtual event. So I'd encourage you to keep an eye on this, but also when it becomes safe to get back together outside, please check back on this page because I think all of our trail managers are going to do a fantastic job sharing what opportunities they have for you. And like the rest of our site, there's a good opportunity here to search particular dates you're interested, the type of events. For example, here's the virtual event option and a location that you might be interested in. Obviously, with a virtual event, you can do that from anywhere. So that's exciting. Another one of our opportunities that we recently launched was stories. And this is essentially a blog. You can see information about the folks that keep the trails well maintained. You can learn about the health benefits of taking a walk or how to watch wildlife in winter. Our most recent one you'll find is about how to look like you're outside when you're actually inside during a Zoom webinar like today. So this is the virtual background that I'm using right now, and you can choose any one of these beautiful photos that we've uploaded for you if you like. So it's a good way to engage with Maine Trail Finder and for us to share ideas with you as well. So the last feature that I want to talk about is the services. So we love that you can, that we live in a state where you can go out on a trail and you can go someplace really close by to get an ice cream or a bite to eat or find a place to stay. We have all these wonderful local businesses that support trail users. And so we decided we wanted to try to help connect those trail users and those businesses together. So we launched something called Services. And that is a standalone map of businesses that have registered with us. As you'll see, we're just sort of getting started with that. But also, you'll notice when you're on a trail page that you can see via the Services tab, what are some businesses that are close to you that you might want to check out. So it's a great way to help support local businesses. So finally, I want to wrap up with some of the things that we've changed about the website in order to help you and the business community get through this challenging time. So one of those things is the closure and alert information. So as I showed in the beginning, you can search for whether a trail is open, partially open, or closed. When you visit a trail page that has one of these either partially open or closed statuses, you'll get this message at the top that flags that for you and it encourages you to look at the Trail Alerts tab. So we're going to take a look at that for this trail. And what we found is, in addition to the regular warning that this might have, this trail might have some slippery rocks, we also see that this trail has become very popular during this crisis because of its proximity to urban areas. And it's just reminding folks to have a plan B and to think about going to another place if the parking lot is too full. And this messaging has been a really effective way of spreading out trail use and keeping everyone safe. So that's one of the things we've added. We've also added support for our business communities. So we've just launched an opportunity for businesses that cater to outdoor enthusiasts to join our Trailside Services portal for free for the next year. We have some fantastic partners that have made this financially possible, and we really hope a lot of businesses will sign up and be able to explain to folks what are the ways that they've shifted how they do business, how are they keeping you safe. If they're not open now, what are their plans for reopening? How can you support them during this time? So if you own a business that caters to outdoor folks, or you know one that does, please feel free to send this to them and encourage them to join. It is free for the first year, and after that point, we can have a conversation about whether it makes sense to stay on the website or if they'd like to do something else. So that's brand new, and we're really proud to be able to offer that to support the community right now. And finally, I want to show you a page that we've created specific to visiting trails during the COVID-19 crisis. And the information you'll find on this page is really the best info that we have right now about how to stay safe in the outdoors. And it's the messaging that the recreation and conservation communities in Maine have really coalesced around and are promoting. So I'm not going to go through all of these points. Alan will be talking about some of the details in a little bit, but I'd like to remind you that if you're feeling nervous about going out or you want to share this information with others, we've got it all on one handy page that you can take a look at, as well as some tips on how to find some local trails. So we really hope that you can use this website and some of the tips that I've showed you to explore trails that you might not have heard of close to your home, or make plans for traveling in-state for a staycation this summer, perhaps, during this time. And of course, I'll be happy to answer questions at the end, but for now, that's all I have. And I'm happy to introduce Alan Stearns. Just stop my screen sharing. And Alan is the Executive Director at the Royal River Conservation Trust, and he's going to talk a little bit more about what it's like to manage trails right now and how to stay safe out there and other thoughts, I think. So take it away, Alan.
Thank you, Nicole. And Nicole has my slides. So when I ask for next slide, it's going to be Nicole that does it. And we may as well start by putting them up right now. As Nicole mentioned, I am the Executive Director of the Royal River Conservation Trust. You can move right to the next slide. I'm going to be talking about some trail issues and conservation issues in this current era of COVID. The Royal River Watershed, just to get you oriented, is wonderful green space, wonderful playgrounds, wonderful recreation destinations, squarely in the middle between Portland, Lewiston, and Brunswick. So we get a lot of people on weekends, a lot of people in the evenings, and especially a lot of people today, with hundreds of thousands of people in southern Maine looking for recreation. My organization, the Royal River Conservation Trust, is a nonprofit land trust. We work in 7 towns and cities, both in Cumberland County and also in Androscoggin County, going into Durham and Auburn and more. We manage trails, we help other people manage trails, and we have thousands of acres of conservation successes. Next slide. Next. There we go. The last few months has been very dynamic for us. We are thrilled and proud that we've been able to provide a service to so many people by getting people outside for physical health, mental health, socialization, people meeting friends on trails appropriately. Our trails and preserves are functioning as outdoor classrooms for families and others looking for schooling opportunities. And we and many others have conserved many farms in the area that are providing food as well as other environmental services. Next slide. We also have been put into the position of being public health managers, that we didn't think of ourselves as managing public health just a few months ago, but suddenly education about public health is so important to keep people safe. The state, various state agencies, various statewide NGOs pulled together some early guidance, which was very helpful. Nicole pointed you to what's at Maine Trail Finder's website. And you'll see more and more signs at trailheads giving you some of this advice. I'm not going to walk through all of this, and these slides are on our website, and we'll talk about how to get this information later. But if, obviously we know stay distant while hiking, be safe, plan ahead. Dogs have been a particular issue, and I put dogs into the category of anxiety. That I think it's important that everybody, when you're outside, anticipate that people you meet on the trail are in a bad space. Anticipate that neighbors are in a bad space. Anticipate that private landowners are in a bad space. And I say bad space mentally because all of us are exhausted and particularly anxious lately. Dogs tend to add to that, and keeping your dogs on leash is really more sensible than ever, no matter where you are. I'd also emphasize parking safely. Many of us who have had to close trails have had to do it because of traffic safety issues, whether it's because too many people are parking, blocking the roadway, or blocking access for fire trucks. So many levels of common sense that we need to remind ourselves and think through that parking on the side of the road isn't always the best decision. Next slide. Dynamism. I emphasize that many of us who are managing trails and managing open spaces didn't quite know what we were in for 2 months ago. We've learned a lot. We still have a lot more to learn. 2 major points. First of all, we are so honored at how many people are thanking us for what we've been able to provide. There's so much more awareness of the work of so many land trusts over so many years, as more and more people are getting outside. Second point, however, is we don't know what comes next. We don't know what August in Maine is going to look like as trail managers. We don't know what public health guidance is going to be, and we're going to have to be very nimble and very versatile to ebb and flow as so much changes in the coming months in the same way that things have changed in the past few months. Next slide. One issue many of us have been aware of is the importance of asking who is getting outside. This current era has created even more and more barriers for people to get outside, as extreme as a gate, but also neighborhoods clamping down with exclusivity, so much more fear, and so many more challenges in getting people outside. Many of us in Maine's conservation community have been focused on getting everybody outside and recognizing that the barriers are often unintentional. And it's worth just reflecting on how many people might be getting outside less currently than they used to, or might be more fearful or less able to get outside than they used to be. Next slide. Stewardship is the term we use in the conservation community to describe land management, and it has been more challenging than ever. We have seen here in Cumberland County easily a 10-fold increase in usage of our trails. That affects the trails, that affects how we manage the trail and how we interact with trail users. There's been a radical increase in communications needed and happening as people are looking for information, calling with questions, and we are no longer thinking of any of our properties as somewhat passive remote destinations. They're being used actively by enormous numbers of people. We don't know if it's a temporary shift. We don't know if it's a permanent shift. We do know that it's having impact on our properties and should guide us in the future as we do an even better job of making management decisions and coordinating with others. Next slide. More and more of us are talking about the imperative of conservation. Some in Augusta or otherwise would think that we should take a break, that there are certainly other higher priorities, but what we see is that the future of our communities is really in flux, and we see an imperative for us to lean into the discussion in terms of making sure we know what the future of our communities will be. Many of our communities have temporary residents coming from metropolitan areas. There's reason to think some of that exodus will continue and maybe become permanent. Conservation in Greater Portland has been stressful lately because of the pace of growth, and we need to be ready for the unknown of future growth. Also, most simply, our trail systems are at capacity. And if our trail systems were at capacity before this crisis, there's reason to invest more. The next few slides are a few recommendations. First, as I led in, we think conservation should be part of any recovery and stimulus package, both in Augusta and Washington. Next. Second, we think there needs to be a deliberate focus on Maine's full demographic diversity. The era of nature preserves may be over. We may be asking who is able to get to those nature preserves, who is able to get to hiking trails. Are we strategically going both for the elderly, the disabled, new Mainers, and the full slate of Mainers? Next. Third, I recommend that we should shift Maine's conservation focus to where people live. This has been a statement that many of us have made for decades, that in addition to great work in the North Woods, we should focus on where people live. I think that's more important than ever, and often we haven't implemented the observations that we've made recently. Again, these slides will be on the, go back for a bit, Nicole. I think one thing I'd point out here, in working in Cumberland County and Androscoggin County, our state parks are at capacity, and I don't think the legislature has done enough to acknowledge that fact. And in the current era, we really have to have a conversation about how state parks serve us in southern Maine. And second, if you look at the metrics in Androscoggin County, as a state, we have neglected Androscoggin County in terms of towns in Androscoggin County where there are not dog walking paths, towns in Androscoggin County where there's very, very little conserved open space. And we need to do more, and we need to start to talk about these issues. Next slide. Final recommendation, support your local land trust. We're very proud of what we do, and so many land trusts across the state have been working harder than ever recently. Next slide. Thank you. I'll turn it back to Melanie, I think.
Thanks, Alan. Before we get into my slides, Mainers, probably like many of you, have been flocking to trails and beaches, and it's for good reason. Studies show that time in nature is preventative medicine for mental and physiological health issues. And just this morning, I read a New York Times headline that said the new get out push. And it went on to say that experts are recommending that people get outside right now. But we need to make sure that everyone has access, like Alan mentioned. Even though remote trails are fantastic places to recreate, access to nature closer to where people live and work is absolutely essential. And we all deserve to reap the benefits of being in the outdoors, especially during a stressful time like a pandemic. And in Maine, we're really fortunate to be surrounded by nature, but access is a key consideration. And that's why programs like LMF, which help fund conservation projects, big and small across Maine, are so important. Next slide, please. LMF, or Land for Maine's Future, is the state's most successful and popular conservation funding program, but it has run out of money, and new funding is urgently needed. There hasn't been an LMF bond since 2012, but there's a lot of important land conservation that still needs to be done. Conserving Maine's natural resources protects our way of life and secures an economic future for future generations. In its over 30 years, since 1987, LMF has supported over 300 projects spread across all 16 counties and has protected over 600,000 acres of land, over half of which are working lands. Next slide, please. And just so everyone knows, the pictures in my presentation are all from LMF projects. LMF funding supports all types of conservation projects, like I mentioned. It helps protect the character of Maine, providing opportunities for recreation, water access even, and it supports Maine's tourism and recreation and natural resource-based industries. LMF isn't only about conservation and recreation. It supports local businesses and industries that are the backbone of Maine's economy, like we can see in this working waterfront photo. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I'm talking about LMF, but many of you are already familiar with it because you've voted for funding in the past or you've visited LMF lands. It's been widely supported by voters in all 16 counties every time it's gone to the ballot box, which is 6 times now. The projects that are funded by LMF are long-term investments for Maine residents and visitors, and they won't go away. They're permanently protecting this land, and it's for now and into the future, and it's for Maine residents and it's for visitors. So it's a really important, impactful investment to make. And LMF is a state-run program, but it leverages non-state funds, such as from federal matching grants. So the state gets more bang for its buck than what it puts in. Next slide. This legislative session, which started in 2019, there was a bill introduced to refund LMF that was LD 911, and it would provide funding for Land for Maine's Future. The bill, by the way, is sponsored by Senator Kathy Breen of Falmouth, and she's the chair of the Appropriations Committee. The bill had and continues to have over 100 co-sponsors and bipartisan support, which demonstrates just how popular the program is and successful it's been in the past. Passing this bill would propose a bond measure that would go to voters in November. The bond measure would fund LMF at $75 million, but it also includes bond funding totaling $20 million for Maine state parks. And on the parks piece, the funds would be used to address deferred maintenance, which is estimated to be about $50 million, more than what the bond would provide, but there's a serious backlog that needs to be addressed. And it's estimated that Maine hasn't gotten or hasn't had its facilities, some facilities updated in more than 40 years. While some states are improving their facilities, adding new features to attract visitors, Maine has kind of lagged behind, and we need to stay competitive. So this funding for Maine state parks could help with that problem. And supporting this bill, voting for LMF when it comes to the ballot, hopefully can help further conservation of recreation and working lands, like I've talked about. And it's been demonstrated over the past couple of weeks just how invaluable those lands are during this crazy time. So we hope you support LMF. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks.
All right, well, many thanks to our presenters today. We are going to move to the question and answer portion of our program. If you have a question for any of our presenters, feel free to type it in the question and answer box. We have lots of questions pouring in. We have about 20 minutes for questions. So get yours in now. So we will start with a question for Nicole about geocaching. Lots of questions about whether Maine Trail Finder has information about geocaching sites on trails throughout Maine.
Thank you for the question. Actually, we don't track specifically whether a trail has a geocache on it. However, we do, we had a widget. I think maybe, my apologies, we maybe removed the widget. Now I'm sounding like a techno babble over here. But we do encourage folks to check out on the geocaching page where they're headed and the specific website. And actually, I'm recalling now that one of the reasons we removed the geocaching link on our website is we had a lot of trail managers that were concerned that it was encouraging people to add geocaches where they were uncomfortable with that happening. So we removed it in order to promote and work well with the trail managers and their requests. So apologies, that feature is no longer available. And apologies that I forgot.
Another question for Nicole. Are restroom facilities indicated on Maine Trail Finder for different trails?
Sure, yep. So we have a pin type that is for restrooms. So if the trail has a restroom, you should see a pin on the map that shows that. As always, if you're visiting a trail and your experience is a little bit different than what we have on our website, feel free to add a comment, and then we read those comments and we update our postings accordingly. So if we say there's a restroom and it's gone, tell us that, or vice versa, and we're happy to make the update. You are the eyes on the ground. Where I would love to travel all 1,000 trails myself, but have not yet had the opportunity to do that.
Great. This next question is for Melanie. Wondering if the Land for Maine's Future bill, LD 911, is still being discussed in the legislature, and if there's still time to contact legislators in support of that bill.
That's a good question. Yeah, I should have mentioned its status. It is still in play. The legislature, as all of you know, adjourned early mid-March, but that left a lot of unfinished business, including this bill. So if there's a special session later this year of the legislature, it's possible that they'll still take up the bill. And so there is definitely time to tell your legislator if you think this is an important bond measure to consider. And you can, I believe, take action on the Natural Resources Council of Maine website. There's an action alert. So we can post the link, I think, in the chat or send it to you later if you want some talking points to contact your legislator. Thanks for asking about that.
Great. This next question is from Lauren Kelly, who asks about volunteer opportunities with either the Maine Trail Finder or the Royal River Conservation Trust or NRCM. Alan, can you speak to any volunteer opportunities that your land trust usually has?
I think all land trusts have a constant intake process for volunteers. So the easy answer is call your local land trust and or look at their website. Volunteerism has been really dynamic the last few months, with some volunteers truly rallying to fill a void that they saw was necessary. And other volunteer experiences are simply so much more challenging because of so many dynamics. So if you're interested in volunteering, I'd say take it as in the next few months, take it as a very serious commitment, and make sure you anticipate what you have to offer and what we need, rather than expecting some of the usual feel-good intake that we offer.
Great, thank you. Nicole, this next question is for you. There's been a few questions actually about a smartphone app for the Maine Trail Finder resource. Does one exist, or is there one in the works?
Great question, thank you. And we get that question a fair amount. And the answer to that is we've chosen not to create an app, and that is because developing an app for both iOS and Android costs quite a bit of money. And we've instead put our investment toward making the website very mobile friendly. You'll find that it works as well on mobile as it does on desktop, because we think it's more important to put the money toward developing new trail postings and offering the business connection opportunities that I talked about. But thank you for asking. I hope that you'll find that the mobile website works as well for you as an app would.
Great. So Nicole, this next question is for you as well. Comes from Lori Bernier, who is wondering if Maine Trail Finder has, if you can find ADA and handicap accessible trails through Maine Trail Finder.
Thank you for the question. That is a topic that we've been working on quite a bit with our partners. It's not as easy as just having a checkbox about whether a trail experience is accessible. Certainly ADA is a particular qualification, but there's a range of accessibilities beyond that. So we're trying to provide better information on our trail posts about what people can expect to experience. But you can also search, when I was showing the search opportunities on the map, there is a way to search for terms, and you can search the term ADA, and anything that has that will come up. Or the term accessible, but it's something that we're working on, and we actually have a whole page under the trails menu dedicated to the conversation around accessibility and how we're trying to accommodate this. So thank you for asking, and if you're interested in talking about that more, we'd love to talk with you, because we're looking for people to partner with to make sure we do it right.
Great. Alan, this next question is for you. It comes from Jessica Fay. Our question is, many age-friendly communities have identified that accessible trails are important, an important part of livable communities. Has your land trust or have other land trusts worked with age-friendly communities to make sure that trails are accessible for all?
Yeah, most towns in our area have active age-friendly communities, and we've interfaced with most of those committees in most of those towns. As Nicole mentioned, often it's, well, the most important part is where the rubber hits the road, and what are you actually doing, or how are you actually able to promote age-friendly trails? And it's everything from telling people, whether it's not just wheelchair access, it's whether there are bathrooms, whether there are changing stations, what the slopes might be if it's not technically ADA accessible, even if it's accessible. We have invested some of our cash in building wheelchair access trails, and we've done that recognizing that our relatively remote, relatively primitive trails aren't the best places to invest. But instead we've partnered with Bradbury State Park, partnered with the town of Yarmouth to make the most appropriate locations most accessible, while still focusing on our own trails to a lesser standard.
Excellent, thank you.
I would like to add too that recently we added a search. So hiking is an option, but walking is also an option. We're trying to get those trails that are flatter, wider, less routes, that sort of thing under walking. So that might be a place to start. And then with the quick facts and the photos, try to help find that as we're working on improving our communication around this.
Great. So we have about 10 more minutes left for questions. Again, if folks have any questions, please type them in the question and answer box. This next question is for you, Nicole. This comes from Ashley. She says she works for a nature preserve that has hiking trails, and she's wondering if she can add their trails and their information directly to Maine Trail Finder if she registers for an account, or does she need to go through you or some of your colleagues?
Great question, thank you. Firstly, we'd love to add any trails. So the account option doesn't let you manage a page yourself if you're a trail manager, but we are happy to do that for you at no cost. And I would recommend you contact us through the contact form on the website, and then my colleagues will get to work setting up that page for you. It's a pretty quick process. And then we will make edits to the page at any time on your request as well.
Great. And Nicole, a question about Maine Trail Finder swag. Is there a place on the site where you can buy a cool, maybe a hoodie, sweatshirt like you have on right now, or a cool hat?
Good question. We are thinking about expanding the line beyond just our core Maine Trail Finder team, but I would like to say that right now, under our COVID-19 section on our trail, on our website, you can see a contribute page. So we do have a limited opportunity where we're giving folks a hat if they donate to the page, and that money goes back into trail postings and helping businesses communicate their offerings as well. So if you'd like to donate and get a hat, you have an opportunity right now. So check out the contribute page. And maybe we'll get you a hoodie at some point.
Alan, I'm going to direct this question to you as it deals with the current COVID-19 pandemic. And the question is from Laura, who asks if there are any restrictions for residents, for New Hampshire residents who are hiking in Maine. What sort of guidance should New Hampshire residents have before they use trails here in Maine?
I think it's important, these rules are changing weekly from different governors or federal guidance. So I think an important thing is to stay current with what your state is doing, as well as if you're choosing to cross state lines, be responsible and learn about the state you're going to or coming to. I know Maine has a very real issue of people from out of state coming to Maine for a variety of reasons, and I'm not expert on the rule versus suggestion of quarantine, but certainly think of yourself as being a vector for this disease every time you travel, and ask yourself why you're choosing to travel across state lines. If it's only for your own benefit, then think about staying at home.
I'd also like to add that we have a sister website that has very similar functionality in New Hampshire and Vermont, with opportunities to hike in those states. If you're in New Hampshire, you might try that. It's trailfinder.info. You might find something local to you that you didn't know about on that site.
Great. Nicole, this next question is for you. It comes from Dana, who asks if there's any mountain bike trails on Maine Trail Finder, and if there is an easy way to find mountain bike trails.
Yep, so one of the trail activities when you're on that first Find Trails page does have a mountain biking option you can search. We're aware that there are more mountain bike trails in the state than we have on the website. Because of that work that we do with the people who maintain the trails, it can take us a little bit of time to develop a relationship with them to put this information online. So certainly feel free to use that search option. And I would also recommend the New England Mountain Bike Association has information on their website as well.
Great. And Nicole, a question about badges with Maine Trail Finder. Carolyn writes that she climbed Mount Katahdin at age 73 and is wondering if there are any badges for people over age 70 completing trails.
There are not currently any age-specific trail badges, but we'd certainly will entertain that option. I love that idea, and congratulations.
This next question, Nicole, is from Ken, who asked if Maine Trail Finder indicates the difficulty, the slope of certain trails, what information is available about trails, about their difficulty.
Sure. So we have 4 basic difficulty classes, and usually the trail manager will read those descriptions and make an estimate as to what difficulty they think the trail is. And you can see that in the quick facts on the website, and you can also search by it. But I would add, for some of these longer trail networks, you'll sometimes see multiple difficulties, and that's because some of the trails are really easy trails. They might be the ones that are most easily accessed from the parking area, for instance. And then as you get farther afield, they may get more difficult. So sometimes you'll see multiple difficulties, and that's why. We are hoping for some of those trails where it may or may not be accessible for folks that we can add that information about trail grade. But right now, only some postings have that.
Great. Alan, this next question is for you. It comes from Kate. Her question is, do you recommend wearing a face mask while walking or hiking trails, while also maintaining a 6-foot distance from others?
So again, I don't consider myself the expert on that, and I would urge folks to listen to the expertise that is coming out in the national media or in state media or state guidance. What I would say is, as I've reflected on that myself, there are very real differences between exercising in Portland on the Eastern Prom or in Scarborough Eastern Trail, where there is true crowding and true density issues on a good day, as compared to getting up into the North Maine woods. So I personally wouldn't wear a face mask were I hiking by myself in the North Maine woods, encountering someone every few hundred feet. I would urge people to wear face masks if they're in any dense trail system or any very narrow but still popular trail system where you just can't get off the trail without falling into a mud puddle. Wear a mask.
Great. Well, that's all the time we have for questions today. Thank you again to our presenters for joining us today. Just a couple of quick closing remarks. So obviously there's lots more information at the Maine Trail Finder website. We hope that this presentation helped you learn more a bit about that resource and helps you get outside safely during this COVID-19 pandemic. Also encourage you to visit the Royal River Conservation Trust website for resources about accessing trails in Cumberland, Androscoggin County area. And also visit the website of the Natural Resources Council of Maine, NRCM.org, where you can find lots of information about the Land for Maine's Future program and lots of other great articles about Maine's outdoors. Any last words from our presenters before we sign off today?
Well, thank you all.
Todd.
Stay safe out there.